It's debate night in America, and we're trying something new today on Speechless. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Ferris, 23-year-old conservative activist and now law student here at Liberty University. I am so ecstatic to be here, and you might be wondering, Kev, where the heck are you? Well, right now, I am in a classroom at Liberty University, the most conservative university in the United States of America. And wherever you're watching from right now, we are bringing liberty into your living room. Yes, exactly. We are bringing liberty into your living room for debate night in America. As many of you know, if you've been watching my show or if you listen to it on the radio when it used to be there in Bloomington, Illinois, you know that I started this show as a Turning Point USA chapter president. Well, as a law student, I don't necessarily have time to run an entire chapter, but I am here tonight with Turning Point USA's chapter at Liberty University, in which they are hosting a live stream, or not just a live stream that you're watching, but also they're hosting a debate night watch party. In all of these seats behind us, we will see filled with young conservative individuals at Liberty University, which is training champions for Christ, here to watch a crucial moment in American politics. I'll be bringing multiple students on to talk to us, myself and you, a little bit more about what they see as the crucial issues here in America. If you're wondering, hey, what is Liberty University? What is it all about? What does your Turning Point chapter do there? What is it like to go to a conservative school? Don't worry, you're going to hear all those answers and more tonight on this live stream, while we also engage with, like I said, one of the most influential nights of this upcoming election, where we will hear Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, their two leading presidential candidates, go head to head for the first time. This is going to be a really interesting night for us. It will. Why? Because Kamala has only done one interview. Many of you guys might have seen just a few weeks ago, Kamala Harris partook in a very scripted interview, or very seemingly scripted interview, with CNN, which we all know, the communist news network, pretty much allows her to say whatever she wants with no fact check. She went on there with her little puppy dog, Tim Walz, her vice presidential pick, and just talked with them for just 16 minutes in an hour-long interview. Not once has Kamala actually had to face any kind of criticism or questioning that recognizes that her record is less than, that she is currently the vice president of the United States. And when she gets up on the debate stage, I guarantee you she is going to try to convince you that she has nothing to do with the Biden agenda. But thank God that he stepped aside to do what's right for America. Donald Trump is facing quite an interesting time, as has not been as much of the center of attention as he usually is. He's not been as loud and bombastic. We notice in a lot of his most recent speeches, he sticks to the teleprompter, and many say that's exactly what he has to do. What can we expect tonight? Issues such as immigration, the economy, and more that are on the minds of Americans, the kitchen table issues being discussed by these presidential candidates. And I'm going to bring on, like I said, many students to discuss a little bit more about what is going on in America. Peyton, would you like to come over and talk a little bit? We're going to bring on right now the president of Turning Point USA at Liberty University to talk to us a little bit more about what's going on with this chapter, with this event tonight, and just everything under the sun. Peyton, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody out in Speechless?
Well, I'm Peyton Stutzman. I'm the president of Turning Point USA here at Liberty University. I'm a second year here at Liberty, pre-law student, so I'll be joining Kevin here shortly once I finish up my undergrad. And we've been looking to make this chapter one of the best chapters in Turning Point history. So,
absolutely. And do we actually? What level are we currently at? How many members do we have compared to other chapters?
Well, Kevin, right now we are at number 2, but we're putting the numbers from today. We're finalizing them right now. We should be the number 1 chapter in the nation as far as members go. Right now, we're trying to beat Auburn, but, we'll see if that happens. But we're excited.
What was the number again that we currently have?
Right now, we're at 300 and right around 320.
Wow.
So
in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yeah.
In Lynchburg, Virginia. Where are you from, Peyton?
So I'm originally from northern Indiana, a little town called Middlebury. So shout out Middlebury Community Schools. Love you guys. Town of like 3,000 people. That's actually the closest town that I live to. I actually live in Howe, which is around 300 people. So super small town. So that's where I grew up. I grew up in politics. father was involved in politics from when I was 3 weeks old. Right after 9/11 happened, and he thought he had to do something. So I grew up around state and local politics. Then I went to federal, and that was a huge ordeal. And then we got out for about 8 years, went into the private sector, did a lot of manufacturing, um, a lot of just entrepreneurship. Through him, I got to learn a lot from him, business wise, how to be a businessman. And then now he's running for his old seat again.
Yeah.
So he's going to be back in the U.S. House of Representatives here, hopefully in November, and we'll just go from there and try to make this country better.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But so now you're running the Turning Point chapter at Liberty University. Now, for anybody who hasn't been watching my show for as long as used to be on radio and everything, can you explain a little bit about what Turning Point is, what it does, and what it's like here at Liberty University?
So Turning Point USA was started by Charlie Kirk back in, I want to say 2015,
2012.
2012,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, 2012. And it was started to promote Judeo-Christian conservative values, promote free speech, limited government, basically the whole conservative talking points that this organization promotes. So not only that, we are an activism organization. So we train people to go out and be activists in your community, because as you can see across all these college campuses, they're kind of liberal. They're very not pro what we do. They're very anti-Judeo-Christian values. They want to promote CRT, DEI. They want to promote LGBTQIA values, and that's just not what we believe as Christians. And so that's what Turning Point exists to do, is to promote Judeo-Christian conservative values. And at Liberty, we're in a kind of a different position here as a chapter and as a whole. Liberty is a Christian conservative university started by Jerry Falwell back in 1971 as a safe space for conservative Christians to come get a quality education from quality professors. You're in our law school now. I mean, our law school is one of the best in the country. We actually beat Texas A&M not too long ago for our debate team. We beat several other schools, I believe.
So our law school here at Liberty University is, I believe, ranked number 3 in all American Bar Association competitions. So mock trial, moot court, all of those ABA accredited competitions. We are number 3. We also have a bar passage rate, first time, that is comparable to that of Ivy League top T20 schools.
Exactly.
For law. So
I would put Liberty University at the level of Ivy League Christian conservative universities. Liberty has around 100,000 students, both online and off. Residentially, we have about 18 to 20,000 students, which that is just great for a university, especially a small Christian university started back in the 70s. Like that's really unheard of. You're talking about D1 level school here, and it's growing rapidly. This year, our freshman class is the largest in Liberty history. So Liberty's growing. It's a great alternative to the state schools that we're seeing. We're seeing gender studies courses as prerequisites in other college courses. We're seeing the history of LGBTQIA. Like I don't need to learn that for an engineering degree. I don't need that. So I'm going to come to Liberty, get a quality education, learn how to work in the real world. And the nice thing about Liberty is we're basically guaranteed jobs as soon as we get our undergrad, which is awesome. I love that. And so that's what really drew me here as a transfer. And I mean, Liberty and Turning Point USA, I mean, they go hand in hand. It's like a big Turning Point campus here. But no, we absolutely love being on Liberty's campus. Everybody's so supportive. Everybody's very conservative.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit more, because so you're a transfer. Where did you go prior to Liberty?
So freshman year, I went to Trine University. Tried to start a chapter there, actually. And I actually got doxxed. So
well, and that's exactly what I wanted to hit on. Is so often we hear, even from like the Charlie Kirks, college is a scam type crowd, and we hear that investing in a traditional education is not worth your time anymore, that you're going to be indoctrinated, that you're going to waste your time, going to waste your money just to maybe get a job in something that doesn't have anything to do with your degree. Liberty seems to preach a little bit different, as well as have a different culture on campus. Compare that, being somebody who has lived outside of the Liberty bubble. Explain what that is. What is the Liberty bubble? What is it like being here? What's the difference?
So over the past year, I've noticed that a lot of Liberty students do live in the bubble. We call it the Liberty bubble, and I'll explain that here in a second. The Liberty bubble essentially this is our safe spaces. I know we don't like to use that word, safe spaces. Remember when they were the trend, like get rid of the safe spaces and everything. But when they say college is a scam, Charlie Kirk is exactly right, except for Liberty University. Liberty University provides a quality education. They provide quality teaching, provide just quality of life. Overall, general quality of life here is way higher than any other state school. And coming to that, I was not used to that. I was not used to coming to a university and professors preaching conservative values. I've never heard of that before. I went to a small private school, or not private, more public now, a small D3 school that I got doxxed at. I got threats.
Explain what that means, docs, because I know that some of my viewers might be of a different generation, which they don't necessarily understand exactly what that slang means. So what does docs mean? What does that mean?
Doxed is where you get your address, your info, like your personal info leaked. And it is a danger to you. So after my freshman year, I actually dropped out, and just because I got so much hate, so many threats to me and my family. And where I lived is actually a pretty conservative area. So getting doxxed was actually kind of surprising to me. And I thought the school was conservative, but no, I actually had to fight professors. I had to fight professors on why I believed what I believed and why I believed it. I had to fight them on their liberal values. I had to fight them on their liberal agendas. But one professor I can remember actually specifically targeted me in class and failed me just because I was conservative. I wore a MAGA hat to one class. And he said, "I can see you're a racist." And I was like, "What do you mean I'm a racist? I just support a candidate you don't endorse." And just the constant badgering that I received from students, like the student body, I just finally decided I'm not going to go here.
I totally get that. One thing I want to ask a little bit about too is, so you talked about at Liberty, it's a fascination to actually have a professor that talks to you about conservative values. I want to talk, because obviously on the right, we always say, well, we have liberal professors that preach their opinion as if it's fact. They preach a liberal opinion. Do you see that Liberty could be doing like the same thing just at the conservative level, or do you see it different, or do you see that Liberty fosters a different kind of learning environment? What are your thoughts?
Into the professors, a lot of them actually take a neutral stance on politics, which is actually very nice. They teach from the Bible, which I really appreciate as a Christian. I appreciate that they teach from the Bible. They preach Judeo-Christian values as like the number one value system in the world, and it's worked for thousands of years. And I can see a little bit where some professors, maybe some government professors, kind of preach the conservative values a little bit more than what other professors do. But for the most part, if you're in engineering or if you're in arts or anything like that, you're mainly going to get neutral professors, and you're going to get a actual quality education where you're not subjected to take a DEI or CRT course. I mean, I don't need that if I'm going to be a music major. I don't need that if I'm going to go into engineering or nursing or anything like that. I'm going to treat people like people. And I think that's one thing too. It starts in the home as well. The education of that. It really does start in the home, to treat people like people, respect people, and until they lose your respect. But other than that, I'd say the majority of the professors here are actually pretty neutral on staying politically on the political scale, at least.
So one thing I finally on the idea of neutrality and discussion in a classroom, many might even say, even you might get criticism from moderates or even people on the left that, well, you shouldn't even be preaching Christianity or singular religion. What about the quote unquote separation of church and state? How are you supposed to live in a society that is secular as a Christian? Your education is going to be less than because it preaches. What would you have to say to a critic like that?
Well, to go back to the separation of church and state, that's actually not true. Separation of church and state was written in a letter by Thomas Jefferson to Danbury Baptist about if we were going to have a state-issued church, because back in the 1700s, England had a state church that everybody was subjected to go to. Thomas Jefferson said, no, there will not be a state-run church, because they saw the problems with that. They wanted people to have a freedom of religion, freedom of different denominations. So, for example, a lot of the colonists originally came here for religious freedom. Let's take the Baptists and Methodists, for example. They came to Virginia mainly. The Catholics actually came to Maryland. The Protestants mainly settled in New England. And they came here for that religious freedom. And they were worried. The Danbury Baptists were worried that the new government was going to implement a state church. And Thomas Jefferson wrote them and said, no, there should be a separation of church and state It did not mean, however, Christians should not be involved in politics, because I believe personally there's a spiritual price to political silence. We should be involved in politics. That's actually one of the three pillars of Christianity: is family, church, and government, is what God ordains as an ultimate authority here on earth. So, to those Christians that say there should be a separation of church state, I have to disagree. We should be involved in politics, because for what we have been doing for the last several thousand years as Christians, it's been working pretty good.
So why do you think that liberty has a unique proposition in the fact that it teaches Christian values, when pretty much by and large every other university across the nation preaches more of a secular worldview?
Well, I believe that our education also has our morals and values behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. We were up on Capitol Hill interviewing people, and the majority of the Republican staffing workforce are Liberty graduates.
Mm-hmm.
They work on the Hill. They have very successful jobs. They've been very successful so far. Our ROTC program, last year we went to the Rose Bowl, which go Flames again. But we went to the Rose Bowl out in Arizona, and they honored several Liberty grads that were in the armed forces, that are making a change, that are being champions for Christ out in the actual world. What makes Liberty different is that they prepare you for the world. Even though we're in the Liberty bubble right now, we're prepared once we graduate to actually go out and make a difference, be champions for Christ, and actually survive in the workforce. 80% of our student body is ready for the workforce as soon as they graduate. 80% of colleges across America, not ready. They don't know what they do.
Absolutely. We have a phenomenal opportunity, a God-given opportunity here at Liberty to train champions for Christ. But now I want to translate a little bit over to what's actually going on tonight. The presidential debate, the only one that I know of that is actually scheduled between Kamala and Trump. There's a lot of drama as to, Kamala isn't joining, or Trump isn't agreeing to more, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But we actually have come to tonight. This isn't the first presidential debate of this election cycle. We did have one with former candidate Joe Biden, and now we have a Democrat who has never actually been voted for by a single individual for her presidential nomination. Going up against Donald Trump. What is the reason for having this debate watch party? Let's start there. All the Turning Point students, we're expecting upward 100 to 200 maybe students at our max. What is the purpose of bringing everybody together to watch? Why not just say everybody go watch it? You can stream it on Disney Plus, on Hulu, blah, blah, blah. Why bring everybody here?
So, for one, I like hanging out with people. Like, that's just fun. I love meeting new people every single day. It's my pride and joy. I love meeting people, and I love talking to people. My voice is probably going to be hoarse after tonight, so that'll be fun. But the reason for this is to not only bring students here, but to kind of educate them on what the left and what the people with liberal, more leftism, communism, socialism values, what they actually believe. We believe that's represented by the party on the left. And I'm trying to stay as nonpartisan as I can here. But, we do believe that that this debate kind of represents both sides. You can listen to both sides, and you can ultimately decide as a Christian what lines up more with the Bible than what doesn't. So that we want to give people an opportunity to just hear both sides, and honestly just get together and fellowship. That's what we want to do. And the majority too, when we were out interviewing people the other day, we did get a lot of undecideds. This debate is for the people that are in the middle of the road there. So now, obviously, this debate was, I'd say it was kind of last minute, but
well, I mean, especially when you have an entire candidacy that I would argue is last minute. An 11th hour candidacy such as Kamala's is not only unprecedented for today's politics, but unprecedented for pretty much the entirety of American history. It's almost oligarchical. But without getting on my soapbox there, I want to talk about what you're expecting tonight. You've obviously lived in the political scene for quite some time, pretty much your entire life. What do you expect to see tonight? What issues do you expect to be at the forefront? What's make or break for each of the candidates? What do you think they should be doing? Everything.
Biggest thing on the ballot this year is probably abortion, and what the left calls women's rights and women's health care. They're going to paint it as healthcare, and obviously it's not. It's the intentional murder of a baby, a human life.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest divide between Americans right now. So
it's getting packed in here, everybody.
it
We're going to
really
start
is.
getting more and more people, and we're
Yeah.
going to talk to each and every one of them. So
So
do not worry, but we're still getting back here with Peyton.
Yeah.
You're just tuning in, president of Turning Point USA at Liberty University, talking a little bit more about what you're expecting for the debate tonight, what you think is make or break for each of the candidates, what issues you expect to see.
Biggest thing is going to be abortion for sure. That's what they'll focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Besides all the insults that are going to be thrown.
Yeah.
Probably the border. The border crisis is getting worse. I'm sure you saw the 20,000 Haitian migrants that are stealing cats now, which is ridiculous. They're literally eating cats in Springfield, Ohio.
Well, there's what was it, Venezuelan migrants that were taking over apartment buildings.
That was in California.
In California.
Mm-hmm.
So all over the country. And the other thing we're also noticing too is that for the first time, non-border states are truly having to reckon with the border crisis, with the overflow of migrants happening in states such as Texas and Florida. We've had governors over the last few years shipping those up to sanctuary states such as Illinois, over to Martha's Vineyard, into DC. And now it is, when you've had all these ivory tower politicians sitting up there saying, oh, we'll be a sanctuary state, doing the performative activism through legislation, saying we're going to become a sanctuary state. Now they actually have to reckon with the crisis at their doorstep rather than off in the distance. And so what do you think with Kamala, border czar, who claims not to be the border czar, how do you think she's going to handle this whole issue when now she's even in her own advertisements? I don't know if you saw this. She's using Trump's wall in those advertisements.
She is, yeah.
How's she going to navigate
that? I honestly don't know how she's going to navigate that. I mean, she can't run from the truth. She can't. If you make a mistake, own up to it. That's what we kind of teach here. Like, if you make a mistake, own up to it, learn from it, don't do it again.
Yeah.
This is a situation where you can't do it again.
Yeah.
Because if you open up the border, then you're just opening up for terrorism. You're opening up. I know there was about 30 Turkish military-age men that were caught at the border, and they were let in, which is ridiculous. And I know, for me, at least in Indiana, we're seeing a huge influx of migration. Nobody's even shipping them there. They're just there.
Yeah.
We don't know how they got there. It just kind of happened overnight. That our Hispanic population just kind of shot up overnight. And it's not even Hispanic population. It's Haitian. It's all these different nationalities that are coming into our communities and driving the crime rate up. It's like they're still back home. It's like the crime rate's up. The housing population is starting to go down. The homelessness crisis is starting to rise again, just like back in 2008. Everything bad that happened in 2008, just multiply that by 10. That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how Kamala hasn't dealt with this in the last 4 years. I honestly would love to know what she's been doing for the last 4 years. Honestly, we haven't heard much from her other than talk about big yellow buses.
Yeah, the big yellow buses, and she also likes Venn diagrams. Oh, don't worry, she loves those Venn diagrams.
Those big triangle Venn diagrams.
Oh yeah, those big Venn diagrams. No, we're gonna get to a lot of different issues. Peyton, I do know that you're the president of this club, and we are starting to see some people show up. So I want to make sure that you get to talking with some other people. Maybe if there's anybody interested in talking to me a little bit more on our live stream, send them my way. I'd really appreciate it. And I can talk about some other issues. But thank you. Any last moment thoughts before the debate that you'd like to share with anybody?
Honestly, this debate, it's a make or break. I don't think it's going to be that intellectual, honestly.
Really?
It depends on how both sides have prepared. Donald Trump obviously has Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know who Kamala has been practicing with. I hope not Joe Biden.
Probably somebody on staff, probably a new hire, because I hear she has a really high turnover rate.
Well, the DEI there is just great.
Oh yeah,
I love watching the DEI hires every week.
I think it'd be really funny if they had like a trans man pretending to be Donald Trump, because then you have a woman pretending to be a man pretending to be Donald Trump, and it's just a hat on a hat on a hat, which I just think would be perfect. Would be perfect.
I want to see the wig.
The wig
they get. Yeah. Like, is it really close to Donald Trump's hair?
Maybe. Could be an amazing wig. Who knows?
Yeah.
Every show, got to bring it out.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump. But no, thank you, Peyton.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. We'll catch up with you after the debate as well. Everybody, stay tuned. We have so much more coming up. I will take that from you. Thank you. And like I said, send anybody over that might be interested in talking a little bit more about policy. We have the economy, abortion, the border, and more coming up tonight here live at Liberty University, live streaming the presidential debate for 2024. I have a fascinating setup here, everybody. This is unlike anything I have ever done before. Many of you know I usually just sit in my kitchen and ramble into my little microphone about all the different news. And I do see that there are awesome comments coming in, and I can even bring up on the screen. I do see your comments. I appreciate it. Dylan, I actually went to high school with Dylan. Great to hear from you. Do you guys expect Kamala to actually discuss her policies or make fake promises to the American people? What an amazing question. Thank you, Dill, for that. Everybody, leave your questions down there. Do I think that Kamala is actually going to talk about policies? No. I'm actually very interested in that. I'm going to do a video soon on my YouTube channel. Everybody, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, and share it with your friends, because I'm going to talk about Kamala's issues and what her actual policies are. Because for so long, for weeks, I was asking the question, what does Kamala actually believe in? What does she believe in? If you looked at her website until about yesterday, there was no issue page. Under frequently asked questions, all she had was questions about how you could donate, how she could take more of your money. And don't worry, that's the main policy she actually has. She wants to take more of your money. She wants to raise your taxes, and she also wants to increase inflation while trying to just put price ceilings on everything to curb price gouging, because that's the issue. It couldn't possibly be that we've influxed more money into the American economy than ever before. It's absolutely insane. But back to the original question before I get on too much of a tangent. Will she discuss policy? A little bit, yes. And the primary policy she will talk about is how Donald Trump is Project 2025 and she's not that. Which, of course, Donald Trump on multiple occasions has distanced himself from Project 2025, which, in my opinion, is a bad idea. Project 2025 is amazing. If you actually read it, some of the most conservative policy outlined for people, or for the American people, and through the idea of conservative leadership, which is what would truly get this country back on track. However, that's the policy Kamala is going to focus on, is anti-Project 2025. She's anti-Trump, except for when she agrees with him. But she won't admit when she agrees with him. Things like no tax on tips. Things like the border wall, for which she's actually now using in her advertisements, and more. But it looks like we have a good buddy over here. I've never met you before. What's your name? Spencer. Make sure you're talking to the mic a little bit. We got the camera right there. Spencer, have you ever been on a podcast or anything?
Nope.
My name's Kev. This is Speechless.
Speechless,
which you're on right now. And so I see you're decked out in President Trump and American flags, head to toe. I love it. I have, actually, you can't see him in the camera, I don't think, but I have my Trump 2020 socks on too. So we're matching a little bit there. Okay, so what are you looking forward to for the debate tonight? What do you think is good? What do you think is bad? What do you know?
I'm really excited for him to actually force Kamala to start talking about her policy, because I think since she's been avoiding speaking to the press, it's because she knows that as soon as she starts speaking about what her policies, people are going to hate her, because nobody wants what she wants. You know, the stuff that she's believes in is absolutely insane, you know, because just coming down to like topics specifically like abortion and all that stuff, the stuff that she wants to do with that is absolutely ridiculous. And with Trump's opinion on abortion, he has the three, what would you call them? The three. He has exceptions.
He also has talked a little bit about wanting the states to have much more control over it. That was the purpose of overturning Roe v. Wade. Some conservatives, including myself, have been critical of that, but at least it's a policy position. Can you list to me what exactly Kamala has in store for abortion?
I think that she's wants what the old governor of Virginia said, is that, you know, even after the babies are born, they'll take them, you know, and see what the parents want to do with them if they're able to survive the abortion. Because I think that they really don't care about kids. I think that's what it comes down to, is they really just don't care about life. They care about their own selfish, what they want to happen. They really don't care about anybody else.
No, I totally get that. So I want to just ask, because it's obvious you're here supporting Trump.
Oh, 100%.
Can you tell me, why do you support Trump? Just period, without mentioning Kamala. Just why do you support Trump? Why is he your candidate?
I feel like he really does care for us as the American people. You know, everything that he's done when he was president, it really did support us.
Like what?
We were living in the best time that we had. I mean, the economy was great, best economy we've ever had. He made jobs there were so many jobs for everybody. I mean, they try and call him a racist. He made more black jobs than any president there ever was. You know, like this guy, he loves everybody, and he really does love America. You know, now that he's you can really see it now that he, after the sad assassination attempt that had happened, you can really see he's actually coming to God a lot more too, because he's always been a Christian man, but he's really, you can see it now in what he's been speaking.
He even did say after that whole thing, he said that he has a new appreciation for faith, and he has a new appreciation for God because of that. It's brought him closer and made him see faith in a different light, which is really interesting as a man who has constantly been kind of questioned by moderates, people on the left, even just independents, as like, how is it that the evangelical base can be so for a man who multiple divorces, infidelity, he's not in and of himself what people would see as the perfect Christian from a secular worldview.
100%.
What would you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, you just look at the Bible, look at the people that God used in the Bible, you know, they were not perfect people at all. You know, we had Abraham was not a perfect man. Moses was not a perfect man. They all had different things.
Mary Magdalene.
Exactly. There's all these different things that they did, but God used them. And I really think that God saved Donald Trump that night, if you see the bullet. And I think that he is going to use Trump to help save America and get America back to being godly again. You know, we're going to make America great. We're going to make it godly. That's what I think he's going to do.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Any last predictions, any thoughts about what we might see tonight?
I think that this is going to be the end of Kamala as a political figure. I think that this is going to kill her tonight. There's going to be nothing left, because
be clear with your wording too, because we don't want to. So when you say this is going to kill her tonight, it's going to kill her campaign.
Correct. Yeah. You know, it's just going to, I don't see people voting for after tonight when they actually hear what she has to do, because this is the first time she's actually having to tell policy besides that 16 minutes that they, you know,
on the Communist News Network.
Exactly. Yep. So I think that it's going to be really good for Trump tonight, and it's going to be a great time, you know, and let's make America great again.
Make America great again. Yes. Love hearing it. Thank you, Spencer. I'm going to take that from you with the other hand. This is Speechless with Kev Ferris. All you got to do, if you Google Speechless with Kev, you will see my bright and smiling face, and like, subscribe, comment, share, all that fun stuff. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. That was Spencer, everybody, another great Turning Point member here at Liberty University, talking a little bit more about what he expects, why he supports Donald Trump. Why do you guys support Donald Trump? What do you think? I see more people in my comments. I see some from Rumble. Don't worry, you can catch this podcast anywhere you pretty much watch podcasts. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, getting on Spotify, everything like that soon. And make sure you stick around, because we are going to, at some point, get a Turning Point podcast here, which will be me and many other Turning Point members talking about things that are going on in the world outside of just here at the presidential debate party that we got going on. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I truly do appreciate it. I see more and more comments coming in. And like I said, I really do appreciate it. We got a lot to talk about more with the debate, as we are running on just about 25 more minutes before the debate is supposed to start. The room is starting to fill in a little bit more as we get closer and closer to the start time, and I cannot be more excited. We have Kamala, who's finally going to have to answer for her lack of policy pretty much anywhere, except for just recently on her website, which I'm going to break down a little bit more on my YouTube channel at some point in the near future. Along with that, we have Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who is actually going to be benefited, in my opinion, by some of the rules put forth by the network. So the network, I believe ABC, who is putting it on, put multiple rules in place that Kamala was trying to challenge. Things like the lack of a studio audience, cutting mics, and making sure that only candidates are only allowed to speak when they are asked a question. You cannot interrupt, anything like that. And in all honesty, I firmly believe that these these rules that are being put into place are going to be very, very beneficial to the Trump campaign. If you really think about it, Trump's biggest issue is when he gets too riled up, when he gets too excited. What happens? He starts to interrupt. He gets bombastic. And if you just let Kamala talk, if you just let her actually say her policy, people are going to start to realize, maybe she's a little bit more extreme on abortion than I'd like. Maybe Trump is less extreme than I thought. Maybe Kamala doesn't have much of a plan for the economy. Maybe she didn't really do that much for the border. Maybe on social issues, she's a lot more progressive than originally the media told me. Kamala has slated a significant number of advertisements in primetime slots, especially over the weekend. If anybody watched Sunday Night Football, you might have been inundated with Kamala ads in which she is starting to try to tell you that she's a moderate. If you've actually ever followed Kamala, you've seen the clips in which, in interviews, she herself was called the most progressive member of the Senate. She has consistently shown that she is the most liberal, most progressive member, not only of the Senate, but now as the vice president. And now she is running the most progressive, if not even the closest thing to a communist ticket that we truly see. And if you're noticing that it's getting louder and louder in here, we have a great crowd starting to form here at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia, of which I'm a law student at. We have plenty of students, many undergraduate here, talking about a bunch of different things. Jesse, how's it going? Would you want to talk a little bit in here?
Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
let's get this mic on. So everybody, this is Jesse. Jesse, you have your own YouTube channel, don't
Yes,
you?
I do. Go follow
Okay.
Jesse Hughes, Jesse Hughes NC on Twitter, and just look up Jesse Hughes on YouTube. It's the Jesse Hughes Show. I do politics, sports, and theology every Friday night. Hope to see you guys there.
So Jesse, you run your own stuff. You're obviously decked head to toe in your Trump Force captain, Make America Great Again. You've knocked
Heck
doors,
yeah.
I believe, for the Trump campaign,
Yes,
right?
I do.
You're a law student here at Liberty
Yes.
University. Talk a little bit more about what you expect to see in the debate tonight from your legal expert opinion.
From my opinion, I think we're going to see probably a good bit of Kamala Harris trying to come off as a likable person, as someone who is not totally insane, even though that we know she is. And I think it's going to bear a lot of resemblance, like a scary resemblance probably, to what happened in 2016 in the debates between Trump and Hillary Clinton. What I'm hoping to see from Trump is a little bit more of what we saw in his last debate performance with Biden, where he's a little bit more reserved. He still gets some zingers in there, some good meme material, but he is able to present a version of himself to the country that maybe they haven't seen before, of like a nice, charismatic guy who just wants to save the country, instead of what we get from the mainstream media every day of him being this like vicious fascist villain that they always vilify him as. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more of what we saw in the last debate. I'm afraid that she's going to try and get him riled up and try and get him to say something stupid, which who knows, it could happen. But my main hope and my biggest hope is that he's gotten some good debate prep. It looked like he had great debate prep last time. I'm hoping the same people helped him out, and that we'll see something that the American people and that the independents who are kind of on the fence are able to say, you know what, maybe I will swallow my pride and just vote for him.
Absolutely. I want to talk about one other thing that I noticed in the news. I'm pretty sure I saw even Trump was talking about it. I talked about some of the rules about how they're going to cut mics, and Kamala was complaining about this because it'll obviously be beneficial to the Trump team. One other thing that Trump said is that there will apparently be no step stool or anything for Kamala. That the height difference, what kind of image do you think that says to the American people if, in fact, we see Kamala looking much shorter than the, I believe, like 6'3", 6'4", even maybe even taller Donald Trump?
I mean, it's obvious that she's shorter than him. It was bad optics for Hillary in 2016. It's probably going to be bad optics for her as well, because the American people are going to be presented with a commanding figure like Donald Trump next to Kamala Harris, who is obviously much shorter in stature, much smaller in size. And as much as we may not like it, appearance means a lot in politics. And so people seeing her contrasted with him in this space, I think, is going to implicitly in some people's minds leave a little bit of a seed that will grow of, I think I trust Trump more a little bit to be the commander-in-chief, just because of he gives off a commanding posture.
Yeah.
He has a very commanding demeanor about him, whereas she, in most of her public appearances, she comes off as very awkward. She has that weird laugh that she does that her handlers had to train her not to do, and she still tries to do it even when she's told not to.
She does. It's almost like a filler when she's trying to think with the few brain cells that she must have left.
She has two brain cells that are currently fighting for third place, so I'm not sure which one's going to win tonight, but
that's a good one.
We'll see.
2 brain cells currently fighting for third place. Well, Jesse, you have a lot more brain cells than that. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And talking a little bit. Maybe we'll catch up with you after the debate, see what you thought. Everybody, that was Jesse Hughes. Jesse, what's your Twitter again?
At Jesse Hughes NC.
At Jesse Hughes NC. Everybody go check out Jesse, law student with me, one of my peers here at Liberty University School of Law. Obviously, we have plenty of students out here tonight, not all law students, people studying from a vast range of majors, all from a Christian worldview at a unique university called Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia, out near the East Coast. An absolutely beautiful campus in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Absolutely gorgeous around here. We're going to get to talking to some other people right before we got about 15 to 17 minutes before the debate starts. Do not worry. We do have it up and raring to go here, so that just from NBC, so that we can play it for you guys when it seems to be getting going. But until then, we're going to be talking more and more here at the watch party, Turning Point USA at Liberty University, our watch party here. If it seems that there is any issue with my audio or anything, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. This is something new we're trying out here on Speechless. We're going to be trying to talk to a few more people of maybe some different demographics. Peyton, do you think I'd really love to talk, especially with the fact that Kamala is the first female, or I'm sorry, is the first female vice president, now a candidate for president. If there's any chance we can get a young lady to talk to, awesome. So we can just ask a few questions regarding some of the women's issues that seem to be on the ballot, especially as many are talking about abortion as being a pivotal. It seems to be immigration, economy, and abortion seem to be some of the most deciding issues coming up here in the election, as well as the fact that many just want to support Kamala because she's a woman. Let's talk to a young lady around here sometime soon about why that seems to be the case, and is that universal? Can we decide who we're voting for based on the gender we are assigned at birth, or can we think freely in America? Those are the real questions that we seek to answer here, not only on Speechless, but at Liberty University. Can people still think freely? Can people still be Christian? Can you still be white? Can you still be a man? All of these and more here at Liberty University, and I'm absolutely loving it. We have a great crowd starting to form here of several people. We got a line of people joining Turning Point USA here at Liberty University, a fantastic organization that encourages the free thought in not only Lynchburg, Virginia, but across the entire country. It is truly a miraculous feeling being at a university, especially coming from a state school out in Illinois State University being my home school, and coming out here for law school and being surrounded by people that are like-minded, but still challenge me, that make you think differently about the worldview, that don't all simply follow the woke mind virus that seems to be infecting such a vast amount of people in this country. Do we seem to have anybody interested in? Come on up here. We'll get to talking to somebody else here. We'll get another student. We seem to have some pizza. It looks like we started getting some snacks around here. How's it going? What's your name, my friend? This is your microphone.
Oh,
you can take it.
Okay. Right here.
Yeah, right there. There's
All
the camera. You can see yourself too there if you want.
Yeah. My name's Caleb Carell.
Yep.
Yep.
So you're a student here at Liberty.
I am.
What are you studying?
Aviation.
And aviation. So you're going to be a pilot.
Already am.
You already are a
Already
pilot.
am,
Congratulations. So what brought you out here as an aviation student? Seems like you're like on the surface level, you might not necessarily need to have much of an interest in politics. An average person might say, "Man, what are you concerning yourself with politics? Why are you out here tonight? Why are you here to watch this? What brought you out here?"
Well, I mean, I just have a love for America. I think number one. So really just wanted to see what our candidates are looking like. Seeing.
Are you decided right now?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty heavily, but just doing my due diligence as an American citizen, making sure not only that I like who I think I'm going to vote for, but also what their characteristics are and what their policies are.
So what policies, if you had to say your top 2 to 3, what policies would you say are most important to you on the ballot this time around?
I'd say number 1, immigration.
Okay.
And then number 2, abortion. Kind of the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why is abortion, as a young man, why is abortion a deciding issue for you?
Well, I'd say, I identify as a Christian, and so to me, all life is valuable. And so if somebody's trying to take that life, to me, that's a pretty big problem. So, yeah, it's a pretty big deciding factor. And I think it also tells a lot about a candidate's personal characteristics, and then also their faith as well.
Yeah. So for anybody out there that might be undecided or might be leaning one way or the other, what would be your pitch for why somebody who might not be in a political realm, you're not a government student, you're not necessarily seeking a role in government or even a career that has anything to do with politics, why should other people care? Why is this an election that should matter to them?
Yeah, well, I think going back to what I said earlier, we're all American citizens. It's our due diligence to not only just pin down or make an X on a ballot sheet, but it's also to look behind those names and know exactly what we're voting for, and knowing what they stand for, and ultimately if they stand for what we want them to stand for.
Well, I really appreciate that. Do you have any last thoughts about maybe predictions for the debate or anything else that you'd have to say to anybody out there that could be watching?
Not really any predictions. Just really excited to see what's going to happen. Really excited to see the contrast between Trump versus Biden and Trump versus Kamala now. Kind of ending on a fun note. Me and my friends have a little bet going on under on how many times Kamala is going to say "I'm speaking." So I think right now we have the line set at about 5.5.
Yeah.
So I'm hitting the over heavy on that one.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate your civic engagement and your honesty with me during this interview. Thank you so much, and good luck in your studies. Absolutely. This is another amazing young student that is out here to support the idea of American democracy. You know, everybody, and when I say democracy, I also speak colloquially. Of course, I actually mean the constitutional republic that operates under some democratic values. But that's a bit of a mouthful, and so don't worry. I will shorten it up for many here. I will even show you guys a little bit more of this room. We can see there are plenty of people. Our seats are filling in. We are getting a lot of enjoyment here. And I want to talk about just how important this is. When I was at Illinois State University, many of you guys know I had plenty of stories for which I faced criticism and pushback, not only from other students, but also from the administration, in even trying to operate a conservative club on campus. Here, it's not only welcome, it's encouraged to be involved. And this is not a partisan club. This is not about preaching simply Republicans or simply Democrat, either of which. No, it's about getting to the heart of the issue. And also viewing the world from a Christian worldview, something that's so lost among the average society. Of course, if you've tuned into my show before, you know I discuss the ideas of secularism, the religion of the non-religious. Here, they denounce secularism. They enjoy and praise Jesus Christ, their Lord and Savior. There's a vast variety of denominations in which I engage in spirited debate regarding Baptist versus non-denominational versus Catholicism versus Protestantism, etc. Conversations that at a public institution, a secular institution, would be shamed as fictitious and stupid. Here, intellectual and open-mindedness. That's truly what Liberty University offers. And so tonight, as we get ready for this debate, which will be starting in just about 10 minutes, we think about, what do we want in a candidate? Do we want somebody who denounces your entire moral standing as fictitious and stupid, or do you want somebody who embraces it and sees it as an intellectual conversation, not as one to be dismissed, but one to be exalted and truly discussed? Now, we have a lot more to discuss here, everybody. Thank you guys so much for talking with me in these comment section. I know I haven't necessarily gotten to everything. Is that Jesse Waters? No, that was not Jesse Waters. That was a different Jesse from here. How's life going? Life's going pretty good, and I'm very happy. Jack Young, Cav, long time. Could you fill me in on some of the weaknesses you expect to come out for each of the candidates? So a few different weaknesses that we could be expecting from Trump if he tries to go off script too much. I'm sure that he prepped very well, but in the first debate, as I've talked about on my channel before, one of the things that helped Trump win in the first debate against President Joe Biden is the fact that he didn't actually talk that much. He was not the focal point. He let Biden screw himself. If Donald Trump just lets Kamala talk, the American people will actually have to hear her answer for the last 4 years. So far, she's been trying to run a campaign in which she distances herself from the Biden administration. But believe it or not, she's actually still the vice president. And so given the fact that she's the vice president, she is also in some way responsible for this administration. Not only that, she's also been claimed to be the last person in the room on the abysmal Afghanistan withdrawal. And when she's at that level of these high-level decisions, and she lied to the American people about Joe Biden's cognitive ability, when she's forced to answer not only for her policies going forward, for which she hasn't been transparent about, but also the last 4 years, she's going to actually, her weaknesses are going to be on full display, assuming Trump does not go too far into it. How's it going, my friend? You want to? Yeah, let's go. Let's get you on. You want to come on? Let's get you on this. Right with you. Yeah, of course. So this is another different. Why don't you introduce yourself, then, everybody?
My name's Matthew Bidner. I'm the chairman of College Republicans at Liberty University. This year, you already met my friend Jesse. He was the chair who came before me. He really laid the groundwork for a lot of the stuff we want to do this year. So big thanks to him. But yeah, we're out here tonight. We're telling people about opportunities they can participate in to get involved. door knocking and stuff like that for Trump campaign and a lot of other local campaigns. So just not just door knocking, but like gateways into internships and stuff like that. We've already gotten 2 people like confirmed into local congressional internships and stuff like that. So this year's off to a good start. We're doing a lot, but big thanks to our Turning Point guys here who are putting on this event. It really does mean a lot. Yeah.
All good, bud. All good. So I was just asked the question about what we think that candidates' weaknesses could be in this upcoming debate that we're about to see here in just about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you think the weaknesses of each of the candidates could be? Where could their downfalls be?
So Harris is obviously like big surprise here. She's not very likable. A lot of people don't really like her. I'm not even like just trying to be like mean, but like she tries to come across as like very personable, but she's just kind of like, it's unsettling. You know what I mean? You've seen like all these clips and everything. And I think a lot of people have kind of caught on to that. And people, it's difficult to pretend you like somebody. And we're kind of seeing that, I think, at like the national level with a lot of this stuff. Trump, though, I mean, obviously, he's kind of like the reason he's gotten where he is because he says it how it is. For better or for worse, he kind of says it how it is. He's a little more inflammatory. He has reeled in the optics a lot this past like election cycle and everything. Which I think some for better, some for worse. I think kind of what allowed him to be super successful to begin with was the fact that he was so, unabashedly had the positions he did and wasn't willing to falter on them. But he's definitely used up the optics a little bit. I think that we're not going to see like a 2020 debate night Trump we did, that Trump Biden debate. That was that
bombastic, aggressive,
exactly.
and on the offense.
And a lot of people didn't like that. Honestly, I thought that was great. I think it came across as, I don't know how to describe it, but some people were definitely put off a little bit by it. But I think I would rather see that Trump than a reserved Trump, because that Trump is that's the one who made America great again. He's working on that. So
yeah. So back in 2020, and being the like president of college Republicans here, back in 2020, the biggest group that Trump lost with, verifiably, whether or not you believe the election was stolen, anything like that, verifiably, he lost with white suburban women.
Yeah.
Many say that tonight is his opportunity to potentially win them back. Issues like abortion, seem to be leading, but maybe the economy, immigration. How do you think what is a pathway to victory with white suburban women for Trump tonight on the debate stage?
So this is honestly the really unfortunate part about politics in America is that, and I think politics generally, is that like we have principles we stand on, but people also have to get elected. And I think that Trump, his position on abortion, although it's not unabashedly pro-choice like Harris's is, or a lot of these people we're seeing on the left, it's still not a very conservative perspective.
Yep.
He is more moderate on abortion. As Christians, we're not about that. I like Trump a lot. We love what he's doing and I hope that he continues to do. But we're not happy about that. That's something that we wish we could see him crack down a little more. At the end of the day, though, he does have to get elected. So, I mean, things are obviously just not going to be better under him than they would under Harris. So that's something we can, look at with some. He did get the justices in, though, who overturned Roe v. Wade. So that's a W. So I think that speaks more long-term to what he put in place. And even if he himself is not that conservative, he's not going to stand on the principle, the precedent that he set will carry on after him. And we're going to continue to have these justices who are going to, do right.
Absolutely. And it looks like some of the meeting will be starting here as we get ready for the debate. So everybody, thank you again for joining. Thank you. And of course, sorry, I'm managing a lot of things right here. Yes, we have the debate starting in just about 3 minutes. You might have heard Peyton announcing that. It is so great to see such an engaged group of young people here. And Peyton will be making more announcements. We'll be having more. I just want to make sure that we get everything ready. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we will be live streaming the debate right here. You'll be able to see it. I will bring it up even larger on screen, more like this. And I will also make sure I step out and we'll be panning through the audience so you can see how these young people are truly reacting to what we see on the debate stage tonight. What is going on? And even during breaks, we'll be doing quick interviews, quick hits with people about their thoughts on what's going on. Do not worry, we'll have all that lined up, and then a brief post-debate panel here at Liberty University. It is currently almost 9 p.m. here at Liberty, and we are going to be covering all things debate, I know you guys might have been missing me on my live streams and everything. Law school has been quite hectic, but don't worry, I'm going to keep doing my best to bring you more and more content in this manner. So it looks like the debate is going to be starting soon, and so we are going to. I'm gonna pan over. I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna make sure that everything is set up. I'm going to make sure everything is set up so that we can live stream the debate right here on Speechless. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere because we're going to also have, like I said, in between interviews, conversations with many different people, and a post-debate panel as well. So if you want to make sure you are on the ground floor of what young people believe, young people in Lynchburg, Virginia, the most conservative university in the United States, then you're going to want to be right here. You're going to want to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends so that you can be informed as to what the young, Christian, conservative, next generation of leaders truly is thinking. What's going on behind these young voters' eyes, in their minds? What is written on their hearts? We will see that coming up soon here at Liberty University. Don't go anywhere.
has moved away from that on issues like, for example, mandated gun buybacks for automatic rifles, something that she no longer supports. Fracking, for example, something that she has changed her position on as well. You look at Medicare for All, a position that she's backed away from. Watch for the former president to try to go after some of these issues. And I'll tell you, to bring it back to the voters, that panel with Kate Snow is super interesting. The economy came up again and again. And even though this summer, for the first time, inflation dipped below 3% for the first time since March of 2021, people don't feel great about it right now. So how does Vice President Harris address that moving forward?
And let me briefly go there and talk about his physical performance. It's been noted by many that the former president has tended to be more rambling, disjointed.
I know many of you might be unhappy with the thought of listening to Lester Holt at all. So don't worry, I am still here, and I will make sure that all of the debate live stream is ready. Right now, you guys are looking out at a group of Liberty University students. I hope that the connection is fine. Please keep the comments coming. Let me know what your thoughts are. I will bring them up on the screen so that right now it is currently 9 p.m. Right now it is 9 p.m. No, they're not currently coming. Not on my live stream, at least. Okay, they're not coming out yet. So sorry, that was Peyton, who is asking me questions. Peyton, the president of Turning Point USA here at Liberty University. We have plenty of students here. I would estimate upwards of 150 people in this room. It is going to maybe even be standing room only. We have the debate coming up here. The two campaigns agreed to the same rules and format as in June's debate between Trump and Joe Biden, including muted microphones, a rule that the Harris campaign had sought to change. Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, will be participating in a watch party in Phoenix, Arizona, after delivering remarks there tonight, while Trump's vice presidential pick will be Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, will be attending a watch party. And it seems as though the debate is beginning.
people. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics. And also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a mega hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular, the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question. Would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as the rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
Weaponized, please.
We
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done. Protecting seniors from schools have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues that
things
we
for the
have to get to.
environment that she
We're out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. Might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, The former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders. And we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed, and now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is up.
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
Hey guys, it's
Hey guys, we are here still. We have over 250 people here at Liberty University at this beautiful event. Of course, obviously, the lights are off right now. We're going to turn those. I think we might be getting some of those on while we are on this break. We will be right back. Do not worry. I'm going to make sure I mute this. We're going to have an announcement here from... There we go. That'll help probably. Let's get this go over here.
Turning Point USA Liberty has had on this campus, and since we have over 100 people, I have to perm my hair. If you guys are not a member yet, we have QR codes that are being passed out right now. If you guys are not a member, please sign up. We are now, I think tonight, we are the largest Turning Point chapter in the nation. I think we're on break right now.
Yep.
We're on a break right now. This has been like one of the best nights for Turning Point history. I know this mic doesn't work. I'm doing it for our awesome contributor, Kevin. His YouTube is Speechless with Kev. Search him up. He's a great guy to listen to. Talks really fast. Does this work? No? Yes. That does not work. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use my building voice, okay? So we're going to do a quick video real quick since we have here. So you guys got to see some social. I want to mention real quick. One quick video that will shut up and get to the bathroom, okay?
That is Peyton Stutzman, the president of Turning Point USA here. We are doing some announcements. Do not worry, we will be getting some interviews and such throughout this. People are moving around so that we can get a good video for everybody going. I'm going to take that off the screen for now so that we can be ready for it once we come back. This one. Over 250 people out here right now at the Turning Point USA Liberty University Presidential Debate Watch Party. I'm Kev Ferris, host of Speechless. Everybody, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. We will get back to the debate here soon once it is back. It's currently on a break. There are a lot of young people, majority, I believe, under the age of 25. Okay, I'm gonna.
We are social media, like.
I was gonna grab this mic back from you. I'll take that. Thank you. Okay, now I got all my mics back here.
And this is Liberty.
Ten seconds before it comes back.
We will be back to the debate here soon. Here's this.
We're back with tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
When it ends in just a few minutes, join us for an analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break down how it could shake up the final sprint to Election Day.
It would seem as though that's just a break right now for NBC. Here we go.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I just
gonna
need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
3rd time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass his prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
You made a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? we can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable, but we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
Check, check. Hello, everybody. So right now, we currently are a little bit behind in the room. And so I hope you guys can hear me, and I hope you're listening, because we will be back with more commentary soon from the debate night live stream. It looks there's about 4 minutes left until we come back. I believe that this is going to be a break right here. So then during this break, we can hopefully get a quick interview in, get the thoughts of somebody in the crowd here. Stick with me, everybody, because here we go. Lights on. So here we go. We got the big old crowd in here. Wow, great crowd here out here in Lynchburg, Virginia. What are we thinking? Let's see. Do not worry, everybody. Stay tuned. After the debate, we will have a quick update. We will have a few different interviews with some different attendees at this event, asking some very important questions regarding what they thought of the debate. So make sure that if you guys are watching right now, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends. We are out here right now at the Turning Point USA at Liberty University, the watch party for this debate. Everybody seems to be having a great time. There's been a very active audience, very excited for everything that's going on. They seem to be paying close attention to what's going on. It's so great to see so many young people being very, very involved in everything. Sorry, I'm hearing everything that's going on around me at the same time. And I hope you guys are having a great time watching this. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this format. I definitely am interested in possibly doing more things like this with Turning Point meetings, everything that's going on. It looks like we have just about 2 minutes left before the debate comes back. Do not worry, we will be back soon to be able to cover the closing statements from the candidates. It would seem as though Donald Trump is coming off a lot more aggressive than initially anticipated. Kamala Harris not only lying several times, I believe Peyton has an exact count for how many times Kamala has lied throughout this. His update after the debate is concluded. But we are also seeing a lot of instances in which the moderators are even going after Trump himself. It would seem as though only Trump gets fact-checked as much by the moderators. The moderators are not necessarily being particularly fair, in my opinion. Let me know if the audio is okay. I see that I might be having some internet issues. I'm hoping everything is okay, but just let me know what you guys are seeing. We have about a minute left until we come back with the debate. I hope you guys are enjoying this edition, this interesting and new edition of Speechless with Kev here at Liberty University. It is a very interesting live stream we got going on here tonight. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends. We will have multiple interviews coming up post-debate in which we will talk about everything under the sun, abortion, immigration, economy, climate change, and more. All of the issues being covered here. I'm interested to see what people think. Many Trump supporters here. Is Trump winning? Let me know in the comments throughout these closing statements. Who do you believe is winning and why? Who is currently winning this debate? Is there anything that you think either candidate could be doing better? We have about 10 seconds before the debate returns on my end. There will be a little bit of a lag after mine ends to when theirs ends, but do not worry. We will be back and we will have some great commentary coming up soon. Keep those comments coming, everybody, because I want to know what you have to say. God bless you guys. God bless America. Keep on staying tuned to more Speechless. You will be, it looks like it's coming back right here. Let me pull it back up here as we're getting the production level going. And we are back.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past. Attempt to take us backward. We're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military, and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the
You guys will now get reaction of the end of this from the Liberty students here. Listen to the end here in-house at Liberty University.
We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world.
All right, guys. We're not gonna write it down real quick. I'm gonna clear us out. Obviously, before I say anything,
we're at a spiritual warfare, guys. Like, if this doesn't prove it, of course, as Christians, we believe we're not against the flesh and blood of this world. We're against principalities. We're against powers. We're against the rulers of the darkness of this world. And it is a spiritual battle in this country, whether we like it or not. And our political silence will pay a spiritual price. That's why we need all of you guys involved. We need, like, everybody. If everybody was involved and we went out and got like 10 people
We could sway the vote for Virginia. We could sway the vote in North Carolina. We could sway the vote anywhere we go if we get involved. So I want you guys to get involved as much as you can. I know school. I know I'm busy as well. I get it, but we're all trying to make time to also what's the word I'm looking for? We're also trying to I can't say that. I'm sorry. Oh.
Make an impact.
We're trying to make an impact for not only this generation, but the next generation and the next. So I'm going to pray us out real quick. Lord God, thank you for these people, God, that came out tonight. This was just awesome to see this many patriots in the room. God, we are all your children, and we put you first in everything we do. And no matter who the candidate is, no matter who the president is, we know at the end of the day that you are our one true God. And we know that we will see you in glory one day, that this world is not our final home. I pray a blessing on all these people, God. I pray a blessing that you'll just keep them safe. I pray that you will just work in their hearts to get more involved. I thank you for every single one of them that came tonight, even the people that left earlier. I thank you, God, for every single one of them. And I pray for this country, God. I pray for our nation. I pray for our value system. And I pray for this culture. Please help us change it. We are the clay. Please mold us. In your name. And everybody said, amen.
Amen.
Thank you guys so much.
What an amazing turnout here at Turning Point USA Liberties event. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay tuned. We're going to keep talking here tonight, and we're going to even find some guests to talk to a little bit about what they thought of this debate. Let's see if there's anybody coming out that might be interested in talking a little bit more about what they saw, what their thoughts were on how this might actually impact the 2024 election. Let's see. Would you guys be interested in just letting me know what your thoughts were on the debate tonight? Anybody? Anybody? You guys, you want to talk a little bit? Here's, just take the microphone. Just let me know. What did you think of the debate tonight? Who do you think won? Who do you think lost? What was the highlight?
I would say Trump barely won the debate. I think he didn't really do that well in the first quarter. But I think the biggest highlight was honestly him just roasting Kamala.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was multiple times.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What was your name?
Andrew.
Appreciate it, Andrew. Everybody, thank Andrew, and have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks for coming out, my friend. How did you think the debate went? Great. Who did you think won?
Trump.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, his points were way better. He answered questions. Kamala.
He answered the questions. Pretty low bar for our presidential candidate, wouldn't you say? Yeah. What was one issue you think Trump did especially well on?
Well, definitely answering the questions. That was a big part of it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and giving your thoughts. Anybody else? You guys got any big thoughts? Any interest in sharing your guys' thoughts on the debate tonight? How's it going? How's it going? Why don't you mind? Would you mind telling everybody who do you think won, and what issue do you think was the most important, most crucial of the debate tonight?
Who I think won predominantly was Trump. I study epistemology and I study philosophy. Epistemology is a subcategory of philosophy which delves into the rationale and pretty much the structure of an argument. What I noticed is that Kamala kept forming an appeal to emotion fallacy. This is a fallacy that is predicated upon the appeal of how one would feel rather than the practicality of its implications, say, and how it would politically and how it would naturally affect the populace. I noticed that she did that. She's an expert manipulator, and I recognized many psychological cues that she was forming during her central presentation.
There's a really interesting analysis of kind of how she was acting. What did you think about Trump's performance throughout the debate?
I like how Trump did not take the bait from Kamala. I could tell that Kamala attempted to have Trump veer off on certain rabbit trails by ad hominem attacks, attacking himself rather than the structure or the character of the argument. But Trump did not take the bait.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts or analysis that you'd like to share with anybody out there?
I would like to say choose a presidential candidate who is ideal for the country. Right? Pay attention to the structure of the argument. Pay attention to the rationale the argument. Kamala lied several times, and she's attempting to appeal superficially to the emotions of the audience, rather than to the rationale of the implications that her actions would bear upon the United States.
Thank you very much for that insight. I really appreciate it, and good luck in your studies here. I appreciate it, my friend. Everybody, you hear it here. Kamala appealing so much more to the emotions of a voter rather than the logical side of it. Look at Canada, that you firmly believe will help you with the issues rather than your feelings. These students here are providing some very, very sharp insight as to how the future of America can be under an educated populace and not one that simply succumbs to the indoctrination of the majority of universities across this nation. I'm interested in getting a little bit more insight from a few other people. Shannon, would you be interested in sharing your thoughts on maybe the few seconds you did see? Okay, so Shannon is also a contributor for a Turning Point here at Liberty University. Shannon, I wanted to talk to a woman a little bit, especially because everybody touts how Kamala is a woman running for president. How does that sway your vote at all, the fact that a woman is running for president?
So not only do I agree with this, but so does my roommate. We were talking about this earlier. We honestly think Kamala is kind of an embarrassment to women. We have a lot of strong women, senators, House representatives, just other politicians in the field that are much smarter and more intelligent and more put together than her just in general. Kamala Harris, obviously she had some strong points in the beginning. I did watch that in the beginning. But they were all memorized, and I'm pretty sure you could tell that. And we want a candidate, especially the leader of the United States, the leader of the free world, who's going to be in charge of our military, just to be a strong person who doesn't have to memorize what to say. She needs to go off the bat. If something gets thrown, she needs to step up to the plate. So I think a lot of women can agree with that. And just because she's a woman doesn't mean she has a different set of standards. If you can't do the job, you shouldn't have applied.
No, absolutely. A lot of people try to sway the issue of abortion and make it a purely woman's issue and try to utilize that appeal to emotion to get women to vote a certain way. What are your feelings on that issue, and is it deciding how you're voting in this upcoming election?
So I think with a lot of issues, emotions are a factor, but they can't be the decision. Emotions will switch up from time to time, and to be honest, as the great Ben Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings. Shout out Daily Writer.
Absolutely.
So honestly, in my personal opinion, I think it comes down to the facts, and unfortunately with the debate of abortion, the truth of what life is being moved, and we as Christians know that life begins at conception, but that conversation isn't being productive because most people are like, oh, life actually doesn't start until you're born, which is not true. So I think that's the issue with one of the debates going on about abortion at this very moment. And I think women can easily fall into that trap of being emotional because we are emotional beings at the end of the day, which we have to take that into account, but it can't be everything. Emotions will change over time. In the moment, it may hurt, but 10 years from now, what is it going to be? What is it going to be 100 years from now? We have to think ahead, and that's how policy works. We have to think of the future implications, not just the ones 10 or 20 years down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely. Out of everything else you saw tonight during the debate, do you have any final words or anything you think everybody who's watching should hear? Please remember also that we have people from all age groups that are really, this might be one of the first times that they ever actually hear that a young, not only person, but a young woman is speaking pro-life, pro-conservative, pro-Christian values. What would you have to say to anybody out there that might be hearing that for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I think just stay strong in your values, continue to grow and continue to be challenged and continue to stay strong in the truth. We know what that is. And regardless, women need to stand up. Yes, we are in a fallen world, and that's why we have to be strong women of God who know the truth, and we can't falter from that. And I think go with what is true. Go with the candidate who's supporting the truth.
Absolutely.
And I think that's very obvious.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. I really appreciate it. We'll definitely be catching up more with Shannon as she is a contributor for Turning Point USA at Liberty University. We will be wrapping up here soon, but I do want to make sure that we get at least to one more person, a person we started off with tonight, Peyton Stutzman. He is currently talking with a few people. Jesse, did you have a few final thoughts? Jesse, we caught up with at the very beginning. I want to know, you obviously were very, very gung-ho on Trump at the very beginning of the debate. You're still wearing all of your Trump attire, so I assume you think he must have done pretty well. But do you have any specific thoughts of how you think this debate turned out for either candidate?
Well, my vote was solidified before this debate even happened, but Trump, in my opinion, did not do a fantastic job. He landed a few very good punches in there. He had a very few good moments. And Harris just completely throughout the whole thing, I thought came off as very awkward, very nervous. I heard one student ask if she had been drinking, and we know that in the past there have been some accusations of a little bit of alcohol abuse on her part, a little bit too much wine in her preparations for things. But at the end of the day, I think that Trump just did not seem as if he was completely prepared for this. I think that she came out stronger than anyone was expecting.
Yeah.
Even if I don't think she came out like incredibly strong, but I still think she came out stronger than anyone was expecting.
When the bar's low, it's easy to step right over it.
Exactly. When the bar is in hell, it's easy to come up from that. But what I'm worried about is the fact that at the beginning, especially, I don't think Trump did a particularly great job. And I don't think a lot of Americans who were watching this watched the whole thing. I thought he gave a decent closing statement. He had a few good moments more towards the end. But overall, he did not impress me tonight.
What issue do you think that he failed the most on? That you think he could have done a better job?
There's a couple. I think one on abortion, he did a decent job trying to pivot from that issue, but even if some of what she was saying was completely crazy, she still did a good job, in my opinion, of trying to get that emotional aspect into it, which to a lot of Americans, unfortunately, is going to have a great impact. On January 6th, I think he should have pivoted more. Obviously, that's an issue his base cares a lot about, but moderates and people who are in the middle who are not particularly as well informed as some people in his base on the issue only know what the media says about it. And the answer he gave, I'm pretty confident, did not ease their impression of him, did not ease their fears of what kind of leader he could be if he gets back in office. And I think that he should have pivoted on it. There were a few issues where I think he was playing too much towards the base when he should have been speaking to normal Americans. And I think part of that does come from the fact that ABC did completely horrible. The moderators were awful. They were throwing him the toughest questions they could while giving her softballs. They were fact-checking him on everything. They didn't fact-check her a single thing on anything a single time. The network did no help, but that's still not necessarily an excuse for, I don't think that his team did a good enough job in preparing him for this. So on abortion, he could have done way better. On the J6 thing, he could have pivoted. I know that the whole cats and dogs and Haitian migrants thing in Springfield is a big issue right now. And even if ABC wants to deny it, it is happening. But
they did a good job of making him sound a lot crazier than he really is.
They did a great job of making him sound like he was crazy and bringing up things that don't. The whole thing, I tweeted, I said, ABC asking a question that's relevant to the American people challenge, level impossible.
Yeah.
They did not touch on many issues that are actually relevant to everyday Americans. And I think Trump did a good job of trying to tie back in. He had one of the greatest economies in history. He was strong on the border. There weren't foreign wars. There weren't new foreign wars under his administration. He should have played a little bit more into that because those are issues that are relevant to the American people. Whether or not they can buy groceries is incredibly relevant to most Americans. He mentioned that a few times. I thought he did a good job when he did. He should have talked about it more. He did a great job on the border and on border security, on hammering her on that.
Yeah.
He did a pretty good job on talking about foreign policy. She was able to trip him up a little bit a couple of times, I thought. But I think he did a decent job handling that issue. And those are issues that are relevant to Americans.
Yeah.
But at the end of the debate, I can't say confidently who I thought won, but I think that a lot of it is going to be in the morning when a lot of Americans who maybe didn't tune in tonight turn on the news and check in and see the highlights.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to like what they see. I told one of my friends I thought it was 2016, but worse. And I'm just hoping that enough Americans are seeing what's going on around them in their communities and seeing the impact that's going on with the Biden-Harris administration, that this debate hopefully won't sway them too much, and that they have already made up their mind. Because I don't know of anyone who does not have an opinion on Trump one way or another.
Yeah.
So my hope is that people have already made up their minds, and hopefully they've made up their minds for Trump. But this debate performance certainly did not help him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jesse, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I will see you in class tomorrow.
See you.
For sure. For sure. Everybody, you heard it from Jesse. A very good analysis of how while you can still support Trump and Trump might be your candidate, he might not have had the best performance tonight in terms of the sound bites that'll be playing on the morning news tomorrow. What will the average American, those who might not necessarily tune into the full debate, watch the full 2 hours, what will they be thinking? What is on their minds? And that is what Jesse did a great job of really laying out for us tonight. We're going to get just to a few more interviews, and then we will be calling it a night here. Everybody, stay tuned. I want to make sure that we get President of Turning Point USA Liberty, Peyton Stutzman, back here. Can we make sure that sometime soon we pull him away? Appreciate that. Thank you so much, producers. Let's see. Would you guys be interested in sharing any thoughts of what you thought of the debate tonight? Maybe? Not tonight? Okay. Maybe next time. If we can even get Kamala in front of an audience, or not even, there wasn't even an audience tonight. If we can even get Kamala on a debate stage once again against former President Donald Trump, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Do you think that Kamala will agree to another debate against Trump, or do you think she was able to just get by this time to where she can just ignore it from now on? Maybe, maybe not. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. Peyton Stutzman, how's it going? The president of Turning Point Liberty. First, I want to talk about how did you think this event went? Let everybody know numbers, thoughts, feelings.
I mean, I'm hyped right now. I feel like a coach. I feel like Coach Chadwell after we beat New Mexico State. Like, that was awesome.
Oh, heck yeah.
No, I mean, we had over 270 people here.
Jeez.
In a room that fits 170, so 100 over maximum.
Yeah.
Don't tell the fire marshal. I'm just don't. No, I think it was a really good event. People were reacting to both candidates. They were laughing. They were just having a really good time.
Yeah.
And people enjoyed it too. And of course, the guy had to get in there and kind of rise them up a little bit and just tell them like, "Hey, we're Turning Point USA," and like all that. But no, as of tonight, we are the largest chapter at over 400 members.
Heck yeah.
So take that, Auburn. But I'm kidding. I love you, Auburn.
And,
so
and I
much.
know we got some videos too of some of the reactions of the crowd throughout the debate. We're going to probably post some of those to Instagram, right?
Yep.
What is the Instagram? So everybody can find that at?
So it is TPUSA Liberty. That's it. That's the handle.
TPUSA Liberty.
Oh, Liberty U. Sorry.
U. Liberty U.
TPUSA Liberty U.
And you'll find it. And you'll see. We got a good following there. You'll see my bright and shining face a few times, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you'll have a great time. So definitely go check that out. Now, Peyton, we caught it with you at the beginning a little bit about what we were expecting. How did you feel after the debate? How did you feel like it went for both of the candidates?
Both candidates, I'd have to say there was one that was stronger than the other, obviously. I'm not going to say who that was, but I'm very happy that it happened that way. So you can probably guess who it was. I really do feel like, from a nonpartisan perspective and looking at both sides of the debate and studying debate over like the last 16 years, I'd have to say Trump did walk away with the win because he got the most laughs, he got the most crowd reactions, and he also got the most the most enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Kamala on her end, man, I'd have to say that
you said you were counting lies during it. You said you were counting the amount of lies that Kamala had. How many did you get?
So,
and were there any that stood out?
I lost track because I was trying to find people's seats, but I did count over about 64 inaccuracies during the entire debate. And then there's probably more than that, obviously. Just everything that she said, she can't back it up by facts.
Yeah.
Facts, again, facts don't care about your feelings, obviously. I don't care who she is, but when you lie to the American people, people don't really like that much. People don't like when you lie to them.
I believe there was even a point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if I heard it exactly correctly. You can blast me in the comments if I am wrong about this, but she said that January 6th was as bad or worse than 9/11. Did she say that at one point?
Yes, she did.
And
yeah.
tomorrow is September 11th.
Obviously, it is the 23rd because I'm 23.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Gen Z is starting to forget that a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously that's not good. The worst terrorist attack, worst attack on our country in the history of this country. Like, that's terrible. And I think it was over 3,000 people lost their lives that day.
Yeah,
and probably more since cleaning up the towers and the inhalation of the 9/11 Foundation, lung cancer, everything. There have been more deaths since 9/11 since the founding of this country.
Yeah,
we didn't even lose that many in Pearl Harbor. We didn't lose that many in the Bay of Pigs, anywhere like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's laughable that she says that it is worse than January 6th is worse than 9/11. That is laughable.
Especially the day before, too. How disrespectful to the
very
families and everything.
I mean, the families lost their loved ones. There were only 2 related deaths to January 6th insurrection. All the other deaths that they claimed, it didn't actually happen until days after.
Mm-hmm.
And they still counted it as deaths of January 6th. And one of them actually was from COVID.
Yeah.
So that was a fun
there's
fact.
that, and so obviously Kamala had definitely some flubs is an understatement, but flubs for the lack of a better term. I just had Jesse on, and Jesse gave kind of an analysis in which he discussed the idea that Kamala overperformed a low expectation, but Trump underperformed high expectations. And so while you said Trump won, and I would by and large agree with that. Do you think there's a chance that it still didn't help him all that much, or as much as that we would have hoped?
I think the middle of the road voters, the people that are undecided, I think that they are still undecided because now Kamala did flub a lot, and I just don't. I don't like her personality when she's on camera. She acts all pompous and she acts like she's higher than everybody else. So I'm not a huge fan of that. But Trump, at the same time, he's a New Yorker. He is a billionaire, and people don't like rich billionaires, obviously, and they're not a huge fan of.
He can come off as arrogant, especially to
arrogant.
When you have kind Southerners and Midwesterners and stuff like that. They don't necessarily get that Northeastern arrogance and stuff. But it looks like we're all getting some polls here too. Let's talk about these a little bit. It looks like battleground state polling averages of the presidential race, according to 538 right now. We have Wisconsin, which is plus 2.7 for Harris. Michigan up 1.9. Harris up 0.7 in Pennsylvania. The only two that are gaining for Trump right now, Arizona and Georgia, with 0.7, 0.6 respectively. What do you have to say about it? It seems like a lot of these battleground states are going just slightly in the polls higher for Harris, according to ABC.
This is an ABC poll. I don't really trust ABC polls that much. Actually, if we could keep that up for a little bit.
I would say these are probably within the margin of error as well.
Georgia, I am surprised at. Georgia and Arizona, I'm actually surprised that ABC actually said Trump is ahead in Georgia and Arizona. But I can also see at the same time Arizona can lean Trump. Michigan, I don't think she's up that much, but I can see the United Auto Workers being more towards Harris, same with Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. North Carolina, I doubt that's actually accurate due to the fact that with the redistricting, North Carolina actually gained 8 Republican seats as vanguards for this upcoming election.
Yeah.
So we're gaining 8 Republican seats in the House just from North Carolina alone, thanks to their amazing Speaker of the House. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Met with him over the summer. He's an amazing guy. So I doubt North Carolina is entirely accurate. Same thing with Nevada. I think if I'd have to guess, I'd say North Carolina and Nevada are actually dead even right now. Georgia and Arizona, that's great for Trump. Probably shouldn't have said that, but anyways.
Well, this is your personal opinion, not necessarily reflective
opinion
of any organization or anything else other than yourself. So
yeah. So Georgia and Arizona, obviously, they're growing on Trump. He almost has Arizona by a full point, which is great.
Yep.
70% there, and then 60%. I think I was talking to a gentleman earlier. He said he's gaining in Georgia because of the suburban areas around Atlanta. So I think that he will win Georgia ultimately because there are more conservative counties in Georgia. Atlanta's the spot where he really needs to win.
Yeah.
Same with Arizona.
At least some of the outskirts of those urban areas.
Exactly. Suburban Atlanta is where he really needs to shine. Now, North Carolina, I think he can win easily. I really do. I think he can gain points if he holds one rally.
Yeah.
Every state that he's been
and Kamala even invited everybody to a Trump rally. So everybody get on out there at Kamala's request. Go support Trump.
That's not.
That's going to be. I'm serious though. At the next at the next time that the Trump camp puts out an ad, I guarantee you, it's going to be that clip of Kamala saying, "Everybody, I implore you to go out to a Trump rally."
Trump will use that as an
And he's going to use
endorsement
that. It's
too.
going
He's
to
gonna use it as
it.
an endorsement,
and it's going to make one of the best campaign ever, if not the best, maybe
Exactly.
the most perfect advertisement in the history of the world. It's going to be huge. Dropping tomorrow. Beautiful. Come to a Trump rally endorsed by Kamala.
Yep.
Kamala Harris. Kamala. That's what they call her. You know it. I know it. We all know it. That's Kamala Harris. Right?
I
It's gonna
love
be
the
tomorrow.
Trump impression. I love it every single time. It's great. It's awesome. No, I do believe though that Trump, if he just visits these states and holds a rally, he will flip that state.
Yeah.
Because people just get so electrified every time he walks on that stage. Ever since July 13th, every rally that he's held has been maxed out.
Yep.
Like they have to show it outside on screens to thousands and thousands of people. These are people that are, quite frankly, they're pissed with the government right now. Like I'm pissed with the government. I don't think they're doing their job. I don't think they're doing their job very well at all. I don't think they've been doing it for 8 years, to be honest. And Trump, they got in the way of Trump to do actually better in the economy. Trump's economy was actually better up until COVID. COVID obviously was a whole terrible situation, but they did use that against him. So ultimately, I do think if he holds rallies and if he keeps going the way he's going, the momentum, the way he's going, I think he will win more swing states than what we actually see right now.
Absolutely. Well, I will make sure to follow up with you that a little bit more. We will be doing continuous election coverage here on Speechless. Everybody, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, and let me know what you think in the comments. Who do you think won this debate? I'll take that mic from you, and I'm going to close out here, everybody. But who do you think won that debate between Kamala Harris and former President Trump? I would say soon to be president, but that's my personal opinion, not reflective of anybody else other than myself, just to be clear. And but let me know, what do you guys think? Who won that debate? Why? Did Trump underperform on high expectations? Did Kamala overperform on low expectations? Please let me know. I'd be very interested in your specific thoughts. I know many of you guys have been tuning in for the several hours this has been going on. I really do appreciate your viewership. I appreciate each and every one of you. Do not forget, like I said, to subscribe to this channel. We will have so much more to talk about as this election continues to heat up. And so I will say, as I'm closing out here, everybody, as I always do, God bless you, God bless America, and thank you so much for tuning in to Speechless.